knew that your subject matter is something that I really wanted to have on the show. I think it's so important. So I want to start off by just diving into your story and let people get to know who you are. And I know you have something special to teach us today. So I'm really excited because we all can learn today.
Absolutely, absolutely, and thank you. I am going to start off just with a tiny bit of an introduction here because I always like to make sure that I include a description of myself for anyone who might be blind. So I am Diana Dimmock. I'm the founder of Accessibility for Everybody Consulting. Um, I help businesses attract more clients and build brand loyalty by making their spaces, services, and messaging truly accessible and size inclusive. So no one's left out because everyone needs to feel welcome. So my pronouns are she, her, and I am a white, plus size, disabled woman with long brown hair, and I always have a warm smile on my face. I do live on Treaty 6 land where the Cree, Métis, Stoney, Blackfoot, and Blackfoot people have lived since time immemorial, and it is now known as Sherwood Park here in Alberta. Um, so you want me to tell you about how I got started in all this?
Hmm.
Well, it's funny because I really didn't think I would start out or I would end up being an exercise inclusion and accessibility consultant. It really came from my own lived experience. So I've been plus size the majority of my life. And as as time went on, that became more and more difficult because my body changed over time. I started as a skinny child, and then I ended up being at plus size come like around the time of puberty, and then later on in life, I've become on the larger end of plus size, and I started to notice that all of these spaces that were built for community that were built businesses had built were starting to exclude me. And I was like, huh, okay. And at first, I kind of just sucked it up like everybody else does and sat in the chair that was too small and squished my body and ended up with bruising and all that kind of stuff. And then I burnt out in 2023. I physically burnt out from my corporate job and I mentally burnt out from my corporate job. And I ended up having to take almost a full year off to focus on my health, which I was very fortunate to be able to do. And I came back and I was like, I don't want to go back to the same environment that created the burnout. I couldn't go back. I knew that. And so I basically just started thinking about all of the experience that I had and thinking about my last experience with the corporation that I was at when I did burn out. And unfortunately, it was inaccessible for me and it did not provide the accommodations that I needed. And I started to realize that I was willing to speak up, but I really needed someone to back me up on that and someone to influence me and say, "Hey, you need to speak up and ask for accommodations of what you need." And to be honest, I didn't even know at the time that was what it was called. I didn't even know it was accommodation. And in this corporate job, what had ended up happening was I was a new employee and I came in and they had given me an office space just like everybody else. And the office chair didn't fit my body. And so at first, I tried to make it work. I tried to switch between that chair and another chair, and I kept flipping back and forth. And oh, I tried, to give my feet like more of a place to rest, and that didn't work. And finally, I had a coworker who came up to me and she said, "Hey, Diana, I know that there is a chair that would fit your body. It's specifically made for someone who's plus size, and it's on a construction site, under some tarp somewhere, and they don't have to buy it, they don't have to purchase it. All they have to do is get it to you, and you would be more comfortable." Because she started to notice that it was starting to affect my work. I was distracted, I was in pain. The fact that the chair that I was using wasn't made for someone um, who had a larger body meant that I was sitting too low in that chair and it was starting to give me knee issues. And she's like, "I think you really need to ask for this accommodation." And I said, I don't know. I don't really want to ask for a favor because that's what I thought it was at the time. And she said, no, I think you really do need to. Like, I'm noticing you're really struggling here. And luckily for her, and luckily for myself, I decided to listen to her. And I said to my supervisor, hey, I need this chair. I found out that it's already on a different location. Is it possible to get it? And the response I got was, maybe. I'd have to ask so and so and so. And, we'll have to look into it. Basically getting brushed off. And so, of course, here I am, frustrated because I tried to ask and no one took it seriously. And at that time, I did not identify as someone with a disability. So I didn't even know that I could ask for this as an accommodation. Um, and so I asked again, and I got the same response. And I asked a third time only because this coworker really, really encouraged me to keep asking. And finally, after the third time, they got me the chair. And it was there within a week. And I had spent over a month now at this point asking. And when I got the chair, it was life changing for me at work. I had more energy. I wasn't in pain. I was comfortable. I was, in a better mood, all of those things. And at the end of the day, though, why did I have to ask 3 times for the chair? That's what started my business. That's what started this. It's not just advocacy now, it's literally what I do for a living. And the reality is no one should have to ask for accommodations 3 times at a workplace. And what I want to do now is not only do I help support the businesses to make sure that they have accommodations and they have accessible furniture and items like that in their locations, but I also help the people that are needing to advocate for themselves and, or the person that can support them, like my coworker supported me, because I realize that there's need on both sides. And for me, it really comes from my own lived experience of experiencing all these barriers and having to literally fight my way through it alone until I had that one coworker show up. And it's really hard to do alone. And I don't recommend doing it alone. We really need community to be able to help support each other. And also, that's how we create belonging. And I think that's really at the end of the day what I'm trying to do here is we're not just making places accessible, but we're also creating belonging.
I feel very sad that you had to ask 3 times for
Hmm.
something that you needed. And I also, in my mind, am thinking about all the assumptions that people were perhaps making, maybe not, or jumping to conclusions about your performance, because that's often the first place employers were go to. It's like,
Absolutely.
and your friend or your colleague started to notice that you weren't yourself. And then if she noticed, there's got to be other people who notice and thinking that those distractions, maybe you started missing deadlines or what it was, or energetically, you just
Hmm.
didn't want to be there because you couldn't feel like you could do your work. And, I want to impress upon anybody who's listening or watching this that before you jump to assumption, before you jump into conclusion as to why someone's performance might be the way it is, we need to really get curious. We need to get curious about what is going on for this individual. And it starts by asking. And I think,
Yes.
Diana, I think people sometimes I think they think that when we're asking a question that it's invasive, but there's a way to ask. And maybe I'll get you to shed a little bit of light on what you wish someone would have said to you, or what you hope, or what you teach people to do when they're coming from that place of curiosity.
Yeah, actually, this is something that came up at the recent workshop that I did called the Access Test. And someone said, if we want to help somebody with a disability, if we want to help somebody who's plus size, but we don't want to do it in a way that seems like we're making assumptions about their ability, how do we do that? And what I came up with was, would it be helpful if I blank? Would it be helpful if I, you know, came to the meeting with you to support you? Would it be helpful if I held the door for you? Would it be helpful if I, looked into what kind of accommodations we can get you in the workplace? All of those things and the way that I phrase that is taking the emphasis off of the individual and putting
Mm.
it on the situation. Because here's a question for you, Deborah. If I ask you or anybody else, do you need help? What's your first instinct?
No.
Exactly. Exactly. Because none of
Yeah.
us want to seem vulnerable. None of us want to seem like we aren't capable. And especially if you're someone who's plus size, especially if you're someone with a disability, those
Hmm.
assumptions are being made all the time. So when we
Yeah.
ask, would it be helpful if I blank, we talk about the situation where we're
Hmm.
noticing some inequity versus the person and them needing help.
Yeah. And you know what I just find mind blowing? When people think about plus size or accessibility, they may be drawn to, because I grew up with larger individuals in my home, and that they may think, oh, well, they just eat too much. They don't get enough exercise. But there are medical conditions, medications, all kinds of things, hormones, you name it, that can cause some of these underlying factors that people don't know about, but they make these assumptions because of ignorance, really. Because you don't know what you don't know. But if you come from a place of kindness and compassion and curiosity, you come from a place of learning. You come from a place of growth and being open to learning how you can support an individual without making them feel uncomfortable and not being able to internalize some of that judgment that you're getting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to impress upon people that it is not okay to ask someone why they're at the weight that they're at, why they
Mm-hmm.
have a disability, any of those things. Those are all very invasive questions and they should never be asked. And also, please don't offer free advice. That we know we're dealing with it. We are quite capable of dealing with whatever situation we have that comes at hand. But one of the other things that I want to bring up, because you're right, a lot of people make assumptions about plus size people and people with disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And my question to that is, do we all not deserve kindness and respect, no matter what size we are, no matter what ability we have?
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter why someone's in the body that they are, why they're at the size that they are, why they have the disability that they have. They are a human being who deserves kindness and respect. And that's what I want people to focus on. And absolutely come with curiosity, but also come with respect because you
Mm-hmm.
can't have one and not the other and, be an ally or be someone who, is respectful. So I think that is really what it comes down to is the reasons why don't matter. How you react and how you respond do.
Yeah. And I love how you focus. It's about humanity. It's about bringing the humanness back into humanity, and respect is huge.